Yay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
We'll wait a couple minutes for everyone to come online. All right, so while we get everybody connected, I'm just gonna ask people to mute themselves if they aren't already. I think everyone is pretty much muted. And with Zoom, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with how it works, but I'll just go through it really quick. Whoever has the yellow outline around their screen is the person usually having the floor. We're gonna keep it pretty casual. Yoshi has said that he likes to get feedback while he's talking, and so we're definitely not opposed to people kind of jumping in and asking questions. You also have the option of commenting or asking questions through the chat, which we'll be moderating. And yeah, I think we're getting a lot of people online, so I'm gonna get going.
Okay.
All right, so welcome everybody. This is pretty exciting because we have a lot of Sakegumi members. I saw a few of you today, so I'm glad that you're there with your bottles at home safe. Yeah, so this we're really excited to have Yoshi and Lani from Den Sake joining us again for an event. This is to celebrate Den Blanc and the Batch 10. And for us at Umami Mart, we're continuing the curbside pickups, and we're open Wednesday through Saturday, 12 to 3. And yeah, we really appreciate your support, and Kayoko and I are planning lots of things for the upcoming weeks and months. So we really appreciate your support, and we will be back we're growing, we're coming back, so but don't want to make any big announcements, but we're just coming back. All right, so some upcoming events for us at Umami Mart. They're club events. So if you're not familiar with our clubs, we have the Sakegumi Club and we have the Shochu-gumi Club. The Sake Club is a monthly club where we present 2 bottles per member, and we have a theme and we talk about the sakes, and we have a similar Zoom party like tonight where we taste through the sakes and talk about the sakes. And then we have the Shochu-gumi, which is a club that Kayoko is director of, and she chooses 2 shochus quarterly. We just had the Shochu-gumi drop this September, or the first of this month, and we are going to have a tasting on Wednesday, September 16th, and the theme is the tropics. So we are going to taste through some sakes from Okinawa and pair it with taco rice. And if you are at all wondering what taco rice is, you could go to our blog and see the recipe there. And then on the 24th of September, we are going to talk about our Sakegumi bottles. The upcoming theme is unique yeasts. So I don't know if you remember, but in December, I chose the theme yeast number 9, which is the most common yeast used for sake making. And so the upcoming, I kind of went the other way around. So for the upcoming theme, it's going to be unique yeast, and I'm going to focus in on 4 different sakes that use unique yeast, either proprietary or unusual ones that, you know, come from flowers or different sources. I'm asking everybody to bring your wine glasses, because I found that when you're tasting for yeast, I really liked to taste the sakes in wine glasses. And I'll email all this information to you as the date gets closer. So tonight, as I had mentioned about Yoshi and Lani, we've worked with them many times for events, and it's really exciting to do this event again. A lot of you have seen them from batch 1 to now batch 11, tasting along the way. It's really exciting to try each batch as they as they progress and, you know, go through each release. Yeah, seeing them evolve is really exciting. During quarantine, they've released batch 10, batch 11, and now Den Blanc, which is really exciting. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In particular, Kayoko and I were really interested in the fact that Yoshi is using white koji for Den Blanc. Usually he uses yellow koji. So we're gonna hear about him talk about the differences between white and yellow koji, and how that affects his process and what gave him the idea to use that. And we will be tasting both the Den Blanc and the the Den Blanc and the batch 11. But Yoshi will talk about the ori. He will talk about the nama versus the pasteurized. Whatever you want to talk about, he's open. So we will hear we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And then the Sakos have also provided us with the Trout and Citrus Salad, which is something we blogged about a week ago. I hope that a few of you have made the trout salad. This is a really nice pairing with the kind of citric and lemony Den Blanc. I hope that people will experience a lot from this tasting. So I'm going to pass it along to Yoshi and Lani Sako of Den Brewery. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm going to pass it off to you two. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoko. Thank you, Kayoko, hosting this, and thank you everybody for joining this. Yep. So yeah, my name is Yoshi, and Lani, my wife here. So first of all, what's Dan's characteristic, the most kind of like a significant characteristic is acidity. And I just want to talk about why I raise acidity for the sake. And as you all might know, sake's backbone, sake's the most important component for sake is umami. Probably, you know, you guys know about umami. Umami is the fifth taste, along with the what is that? Sweet, sour, bitter. What is salty? And the fifth one is umami. So sake is the most important. The part is umami. It's most of the time it's created by amino acid, and some other, you know, organic acid also contribute to create umami flavor. So that's the main component of sake. And I wanted to raise the acidity for sake because that's more pair well with the food I eat here in California. And my wife Lani cooks a lot of different type of food using a little, you know, twist of Japanese condiment and Japanese cooking technique, and a lot of times we eat a lot of meat too, and of course vegetables and the fruits in the dish as well. So it's like a Californian cuisine. So I wanted to make sake the pair well with Californian cuisine. So what acidity does to the Californian cuisine. Basically, acidity cuts through the fat in the meat, and also acidity also complement a lot of salads too. I mean, if you think about salad with the vinaigrette dressing, vinegar with salad, the green leaves pair really well together too. So same kind of theory. I wanted to raise the acidity to pair well with those food. And compared to food in Japan and here, food here is a little bit more, as you know, more protein rich, and it's a little bit more hearty than the Japanese food. So sake also should be something, sake has to have some kind of like a strong backbone to, pair up with those hearty food as well. So that's the main reason I raise the acidity. So so next thing is how I raise the acidity, and both Den Blanc and Batch 11, we call it like Den Original now since Batch Blanc came out. So Den Original and the Blanc both have higher acidity than the typical sake, and Blanc has higher acidity than Batch 11. To raise the acidity, I use a different technique for each ones. For making Den Blanc, I use the white koji. Maybe Kayoko, can you bring the picture of the koji? It's called white koji, but it's not white actually. It's white koji is kind of more reddish color, and the typical
kind of
brown, yeah. And the yellow koji is kind of green. So it totally doesn't make sense, this name, but so white koji it's commonly used for shochu making, and very famous for producing a higher amount of citric acid. So citric acid, it sounds familiar, but citric acid, you can find citric acid in citrus fruits like lemon or lime, grapefruits, yuzu, yeah. So usually it's kind of a little sharp acid, but very refreshing acid, kind of lighter acid too. So by using white koji, sake becomes more kind of lemony, and because it's enhancing a citric acid character too. So I wanted to make sake, go well with some kind of those like salad, for example. It's, sake with salad. It's a little bit kind of, it was harder to pair with. So, this Blanc, I made it using a white koji, pair well with some those, salad stuff as well. Yeah. Any question here? You guys okay? Right. I'll keep going. So, and so the white koji is it's developed for shochu making, and it was mutation of black koji, and the black koji is used for making awamori. It's a shochu from Okinawa, and some scientists a long time ago, they successfully separated some kind of like white cells from the black koji, and they developed the white koji, because white koji doesn't have a color. Black koji has a lot, that create a lot of kind of black powder everywhere. If you sprinkle black koji into the rice, then the whole room becomes black, and your hand becomes black too. And your fabric, you have to clean fabric, you have to clean the wood, the wall, and the everything. So it was kind of like hard to maintain as well. So white koji actually successfully really spread out to the shochu makers. So a lot of shochu makers, they use white koji and the black koji as well. And recent like movement, like a lot of sake makers started to use white koji. Not a lot, but some sake makers. And but you know, a lot of white koji is kind of hard because white koji doesn't really, you know, create a strong enzyme action to uh, the melt in the mash. How they call it?
Dissolve the rice.
Yeah, dissolve the rice. Yeah. So thank you. So so it's, you know, it's, if you use white koji 100% to make sake, it's a little bit harder to for the rice to dissolve in the mash. That means flavor doesn't really come out because rice doesn't melt in the mash. So a lot of times, you know, sake makers, they blend. I mean, they use white koji, pot white koji, and some pot they make koji with yellow koji, and they blend it together and put it in a fermentation tank. And that's what I did as well.
So normally sake is made with just yellow koji.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the reason why. I mean, the technique that I use to raise the acidity for the Blanc. And Kayako, can you bring up the another chart? Like,
Yes.
yeah. I'm gonna talk about the difference between, you know, what kind of the technique that I use for the each one, the Blanc and batch 11 original Den. Okay, so Den original and the Den Blanc. So basically, Den original, in order to raise the acidity on the Den original, I, you know, tweak the temperature of the main mash during the fermentation. That's how I get the acidity, the high acidity. And I cannot tell, you know, which days or what kind of temperature range I use. It's kind of confidential, kind of our recipe. But by using this technique, like tweaking the temp of the mash during the fermentation, that will increase the succinic acid and the lactic acid and the malic acid. And basically, originally, those three acids, succinic, lactic, and the malic, they are high in sake. And 80% of the organic acid are made with those three acids in sake. And of course, those are organic acids. So the different acidity, like, you know, amino acid is a key component for the sake. The amino acids are different from those organic acids. So then original, I raise the temperature and increase those three kind of acid. So then the Den original tend to be a little bit more bolder and more complex flavor wise. And in comparison to that, the Den Blanc, since I use the white koji and I use a different, the very normal, it's kind of standard temperature, the movement for the fermentation. So I could enhance only the characteristic of a citric acid. And well, I cannot see the bottom here. Hold on a second. So yeah, that's why. So Den Blanc is not super complex or bold like Den original, but more refreshing because of the citric acid characteristic. So that's a big difference. So Den original probably pair well with a little bit more faultier, a little bit more bigger style food, or, you know, some meat dish. But Den Blanc go well with something, you know, lighter stuff, or a fried dish is pretty good. Cuts through those acid, cuts through the fat in the fried dish too. So those are difference. Any question? Any question? Yeah. Okay. So what's the so let me actually, yeah. So this chart interesting. Probably this acid, for example, Den original, the succinic acid, lactic acid, malic acid. So succinic acid, it's a, you can find this acid. It's organic, one of the organic acid create umami. And succinic acid, you can find this acid in shellfish a lot. So, you know, and succinic acid is also creates a little umami flavor as well. And the lactic acid, you know, probably a lot of people familiar with lactic acid because wine, you know, it's famous, you know, they use a technique of malolactic fermentation. You know, they convert the malic acid to the lactic acid a lot of times for the red wine mostly. The lactic acid is usually the milder kind of acid, and the malic acid is a little bit sharp acid. So usually wine goes through the malolactic fermentation. The wine becomes a little bit more softer in acid-wise and also milkier. So lactic acid is usually adding a little milkiness to it, to the wine, and to the sake as well. And those lactic acid and the succinic acid, those two acids are good for also warm or room temperature too. So this Den original can be drunk with warm or room temperature. And it's really, you know, its taste becomes super gentle and mild too. Yeah, so that's the malic acid is, you know, it's a little bit kind of sharper acid. So you know, that's why the original is usually it's a little bit more complex. That's one of the reasons, not the all the reason that create thing that makes the thing original a little bit more bolder. But this is the one of the reasons. Yeah. What else? What else I'm gonna talk about?
Is the Blanc also a Nama?
Yes, the Blanc also available for both Nama and pasteurized one. Yeah.
And do you use the same rice also in the Blanc?
Yes, same rice, same yeast, and same water, and same person. Yes.
Same price.
Same price too. Yeah. And but just you know, Den Blanc we produced only 50 cases, so it's just a lot less than Den Original. Den Original we produced about 200 cases, so it's 1/4 of the whole volume.
In the Den Blanc, you said you increased the citric acid, but do you also have the same malic acid and lactic? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Not high like original Den original, but yes, Den Blanc contains succinic acid, lactic acid, malic acid as well. Yes. Oh, yeah, and also the difference between those two, Den Blanc and the Den original, the shubo making method. Probably most of them are not familiar with shubo. Shubo is the, it's called a starter mash or yeast starter. So basically, in order to make sake, we make a shubo, the yeast starter. I mean, 90% of the time, not all the time, but. So the shubo is a very concentrated version of the main mash. So everything in it, all the koji rice, and the koji and the water, steamed rice and the yeast, everything is in it, but just very, very small mini scale of the tank we use. And basically during those shubo making time, we basically, shubo is to cultivate the good yeast cells inside. Because after that process, we're gonna add extra steamed rice and extra water, a lot of water in it too. So it's all the yeast cells in the yeast is gonna be diluted with all those stuff added later. So we need to make super concentrated yeast kind of starter mash beforehand. So when I make those shubo making, a lot of times it's the most common way of making shubo is called, one is called the sokujo. Sokujo is the most common way and the less risky way in terms of bacterial contamination. So a lot of sake brewers use the Sokujo method. I use that Sokujo method for the original Den as well. And for the Sokujo method, we have to add lactic acid in it to make the tank acidic environment, so that other bacteria or wild yeast doesn't, go in there and, live and dominate the our sake yeast. So that acidic environment is very important in the beginning of the stage. So that's how I make the yeast starter for the Den original, adding lactic acid. That's the most common way. And it takes about 10 days to 14 days to finish the yeast starter. But for the Blanc, since this citric acid, I use the white koji for the yeast starter as well. So white koji creates a lot of citric acid, high amounts of citric acid. So that's enough to make the acidic environment in the tank. So I didn't have to add the lactic acid for the Den Blanc. And also shubo making method, I said one is called the sokujo. That's the most common way of sake making, the shubo making technique. For Den Blanc, I use a technique called koon toka. Koon toka means high temperature saccharification. That's a super technical word. But basically, I use I use a hot water I use a mixture of hot water and the koji rice. So koji rice dissolve in the hot water and create like amazake. Amazake is a sweet, kind of syrupy kind of liquid to it. So that's how I get the sugar. Then I add yeast after that. And it took me only, actually, it's a special way of making, but it took me only the 2 days of making shubo. So it's much faster and actually less risky way of yeast starter making. That's a high temperature saccharification yeast starter method. So
it takes 2 days. Normally it takes
days. Like 10 days to 14 days. So that's pretty much that's the whole kind of difference between Blanc and the Den original. Yeah. Any question?
So I see some people are eating. Maybe they're eating the trout salad.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. So let's get your feedback on the pairing. Do you think it worked well? Is everybody?
Yeah, it's delicious.
Oh, great.
Great.
The citric component and the wonderful.
Which one do you like more? The Batch 11 or the Blanc?
Wow, that's a very difficult question.
Which do you like more?
Yeah, exactly. That's both of my babies. So just it's hard to pick one, but I think I would say, depend on what I'm eating. I think I pick, either one. And I think Den Blanc for my first attempt with a white koji. I think it came out really good. It came out the good amount of citric acid and the good amount of umami together. That was the balance that I was looking for. It was kind of beginner's luck maybe, but actually it came out really good. I'm happy with it.
We really like it too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question from Hobie, wondering where the idea for the Blanc came from. And once you had the idea, how long did it take from brain to bottle?
How long did it take brain?
Okay. White koji, kind of like using a white koji, the movement in the sake industry in Japan, it kind of like started kind of a while back, and some brewers, they use the white koji, and I kind of like I was super impressed by those sake made with white koji. Every time I go back to Japan, I kind of tasted some kind of new, sake using a white koji. And so I was thinking about it, kind of from a long time ago, using a white koji, because my concept, my philosophy is, sake with high acidity. That's what I really want to make in the California. So I'm very keen with those sake with high acid, from the beginning. So using white koji is the one of the, a lot of sakes with high acidity. Yeah, so it just, I started to, well, it took me actually, I mean, as I said, this is my first attempt. So I didn't really, do the test brewing or anything. Actually, this Den Blanc was test brewing and it came out good. So it became product. So it took me only, just only a couple months to make this sake. Yeah. Anything, any question?
I have a question. The label, who designs your labels, and what was the concept behind the Den Blanc, because it's so simple?
Wow, that's a great question. So this label was designed by our friend's daughter. She's 18 years old.
Yeah, she's really good at art, and
yeah.
so
Then
she came up with a couple drafts.
Right, and I was making also one just by myself too. And as soon as I saw that label designed by that young lady, I just, wow, this is it. My design sucks. Then that, design was really great. And also, it's called the Den Blanc. I mean, Blanc is kind of white. So just something kind of, some white.
Minimal.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of space on the label. That's, yeah, minimalism. And I kind of liked it. So. Yeah.
I have a comment here from Rana. She didn't make the salad, but Blanc pairs really well with sun gold tomatoes.
Oh,
Nice.
Which makes sense.
Beautiful. That's
sweet and little acid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the close friend, I don't know if Ken is here, but our friend Ken.
Hello.
Yeah, Den Blanc with the raw oyster, and that's definitely, I haven't tasted it yet, but 99% for sure that will be a great pairing with Blanc and raw oyster, right, Ken?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went on, what was it, Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. So picked up the Nama 11 and the Blanc. Opened the Blanc first. Went with some friends to Sobeichi in the courtyard. Picked up some takeout, and then they had the raw oyster pop up there, and so we just decided on the whim to try it, and the pairing was just absolutely brilliant. And I think it's because of the citric acid from the Blanc, the how do I describe it? The acidity, the light enough body, but yeah, the very high acidity and the dry finish, and the interaction of the raw oysters that were dressed, that also had a sun-dried tomato, and my friend said that they drizzled a little bit of olive oil on top, provided that creamy layer and texture. So it's kind of like you have a good acidic sake to cut into all those textures, like the fat, the oils, and it just exploded in the combination. Then the vinaigrette that they had was kind of like a French style with the shallots or onions in it, and yeah, it was just amazing together. And
I want
like we saw it more like an aperitif sake it's a really good start. It's kind of like, you know, what some industry people would say, like a summer style sake kind of drinking. So yeah, it's absolutely splendid.
Right.
Wonderful effort. We loved it. So I hope you make more.
I will. Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't
thank you,
tried the
Jen.
oysters yet. We have to try
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoshi, I have a question. Like, do you see Den Blanc being a little bit like your original Den series where you come out with different iterations, or do you see it being more try to make it consistent?
It can be a little bit more consistent. That's kind of weird to say because Den Blanc, for example, the temperature control wise, it's a little bit easier than the original Den because, I don't have to, ramp up the temperature and the big time. And, in order to make original Den, I kind of ramp up the temperature only one day, and I have to drop the mash temperature super cold for the next day as well to make a little bit more delicate, more aromatic style of sake. So it's a little bit harder, it's very especially I don't use a glycol chiller system. Glycol chiller system means it's called a jacketed tank. So there's like those liquid fluid going around the tank to chill the tank, right? So I don't use the system. I use just a regular, AC, and I use kind of like cold room, and I use just those insulation, what is that? Insulation mat to control the temperature of the mash. So it's super analog. So temperature control is super hard for me. So it's just, Den Blanc is much easier. So it can be super consistent and yeah.
But you're still able to do that drastic temperature change because you're such a small brewery.
Yeah,
still,
I can. Yeah.
Whereas if most breweries that have these giant tanks, you
Right.
couldn't.
Right.
So.
We have another question from Nathan. He says, is the process of making white koji similar to yellow koji? Are there any differences with temperature or humidity?
Wow, that's a very great question, very specific question. So basically white koji, I use white koji partially to make Den Blanc, not 100% white koji, right? So white koji, the main purpose of using white koji is to raise the citric acid. So there is the temperature range on the koji making process that citric acid is produced much, much more. So trying to bring that temperature range for super long time, then I try to raise as much as citric acid as I can. So that's totally different temperature range than yellow koji's ideal temperature range. So that's kind of different, timing of the each works at the koji room. So I kind of like it's a very different philosophy to actually make koji, white koji versus yellow koji. So it is really different. Yeah.
Is it possible to make a sparkling version of the Blanc?
Wow. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I need to learn. I need to learn it too. And also, the first of all, the bottle that I use, also the cap that I use, that's not the pressure resistant, like a bottle, well, not the pressure resistant cap. So probably I might need to get those container before I kind of start learning the technique as well. So probably it's possible, but yeah, it might be hard, but it's possible. Yeah, I can learn it. Like a seaside from the Fukucho, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Is using the white koji, is it pretty recent in sakes? And was it first used just sort of as an experiment because it's used in shochu, or do you know a little bit of the background of how people started using, or breweries started using, the white koji instead of the yellow koji?
Actually, I don't know. Actually, yeah, I don't know why people started to use the white koji, but you know, I think I don't know. A lot of times, you know, sake breweries in Japan, you know, as you know, some of you might know, the number of the sake breweries in Japan decreasing, and a lot of big production sake company, their sales is decreasing as well. But some like small sake breweries or middle-sized sake breweries, their actually sales are going up. Actually, they are selling well, and because those small breweries, they experiment a lot of new things. And also, you know, I think food in Japan, Japanese people don't eat only Japanese food, of course. I mean, they eat a lot of different food these days, of course. I mean, you know, the tomato sauce is super popular. I mean, Italian or French, even a lot of, you know, different food there. So I think those, you know, circumstances, like it's changed, you know, so those, you know, I think people will need, I think they started to realize, okay, we need a little more acid to pair with those food. So I think naturally those idea became kind of like standard, you know, high acid like sake in Japan. I think compared to, you know, for example, like 30, 40 years ago in Japan, I think sake's acidity probably though, I'm just, this is my assumption, probably sake's acidity level is getting higher compared to 30 years ago. And I think it's more makes sense because of food, their, you know, habit is changing. And also a lot of people are exposed to the wine as well. People are familiar with the wine. Wine's most important component is acid. You know, so, you know, people are familiar, getting more familiar with food, with acidic beverage together. So, you know, sake becomes a little bit more acidic. That's more makes sense to me, I think.
Right. I'm thinking, you know, maybe just sort of the competition with so much of the wine that's being consumed in Japan, and just the popularity of wine, and you know, just a lot more experimentation and from the breweries. It's really exciting, I think, that they're doing new things.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're following the trends of what Japanese people are eating, what foreigners are eating, and trying to adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Kristen here who commented that your first Den Sparkling Blanc experiment could be kegged, force carbonated, and then exclusively offered at the Umami Mart bar. Which we concur to that.
That'd be great.
Okay, let's think about it.
Hint, hint.
Force carbonated. Okay.
Can we maybe take a poll and see Batch 11 Den Blanc, what people thought, which people preferred, or
Yeah.
is that possible? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Hobie
Yeah,
said,
people can put it in the chat if they'd like.
I wonder, did everybody taste both of them, or no? Depends on the dish. Okay, Eduardo, Blanc, both. Okay. Ori is such an experience. We drink the Blanc every night.
Oh yeah, Eduardo is here.
Yeah. So that's good. Everyone kind of thought whatever the occasion called for, like what they're eating, who they're drinking. Yeah, who you're drinking with. That definitely changes how you taste things.
Definitely, yeah. The mood, yes, it changes a lot.
Nathan did not get his yet. Gets it.
Oh, sorry, Nathan.
Yeah.
So it's kind of looks like it's a tie.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, is sparkling sake forced carbonated, or is there any way to do it, you know, like champagne vintners do it, where they add a little bit of sugar and carbonate it in the bottle?
Yeah. There's two ways, and definitely those, you know, secondary fermentation happen in the bottle. That process, like champagne, that's also happening to the sake thing too. I think with the Fukucho's seaside, that also it's they use a secondary fermentation in a bottle as well. So it's a both way of kind of popular in Japan, in the sake world as well. It's becoming a little bit popular, little by little, those carbonated sake, the sparkling sake.
Do you know, has anybody tried nitrogen rather than carbon dioxide? You know, you get that almost like Guinness, that really fine carbonation.
Yeah, good question. I don't know, actually. Not sure. Yeah, that's a good question, but I don't know. Sorry, I don't know that. Yeah.
The ori has sort of a fizziness.
Yeah, ori has a fizziness too. Oh yeah, there's a question about ori too. Sorry, Nathan. What is that? Ori. Oh, it's already answered?
People just saying what
I think it's just commenting about how good it is, but it's also always very polarizing.
Right.
There are people who love it, and then there are people who are like, oh,
black or white, right? Yeah. God, I miss this batch.
And, you know, I do want to be transparent. The Blanc, we are only selling the Blanc that has been pasteurized. And we did this because, so we could ship it across the US. If it's a Nama, it's for in-store pickup only. And Lani and Yoshi, you can talk a little bit about what the difference is between the pasteurized Blanc and the Nama Blanc. But to my understanding, there wasn't much of a difference. And so we went with the pasteurized so we could ship it nationwide.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's not much of a big difference in taste because it was just pressed and bottled quite recently. Yeah.
So in the beginning, not super huge difference between Nama and the pasteurized one, but the you know, after a couple months, then you know, usually Namazake unpasteurized one, because since this is unpasteurized, pasteurization means, you know, they go through the heating process, right? They heat up the sake to kill the enzyme action inside a bottle. So that's, you know, how we pasteurize. And pasteurization process, so those enzyme in the bottle, if it's Nama, unpasteurized, still alive, so those enzyme keeps creating a glucose, which is sugar. So Namazake usually it's getting sweeter if you wait long. And until probably, I would say, in my sake's case, probably after 2 months or 3 months, the sweetness keeps the greater in the bottle.
Increasing.
Yeah. Then after 2 months, 3 months, it's kind of stops, and the more becomes a little bit more, you know, those stabilized, and the more aged character, you know, started coming out, more roundness started coming out after 2 or 3 months. But the pasteurization, since, you know, we kind of trying to kill those enzyme action inside, so it's one-time pasteurization doesn't completely kill that enzyme action. So that's why a lot of sake pasteurized twice to kill the enzyme action completely. But I wanted to leave some kind of freshness, some kind of vibrancy in the bottle. That's why I decided to do only one-time pasteurization. Also, label-wise, it's hard to, you know, do that twice. So those 2 reasons. But so pasteurized sake, usually it stops that changing a profile of sake or slowing down the profile, the changing a profile of sake. And especially if you wait like, 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, pasteurized sake is aged more beautifully, more, without gaining any unpleasant flavor. Pasteurized sake ages much better. That's, that's kind of like, I think a common way to put, I think. So the namazake is usually, for, enjoying a vibrancy, those expressiveness, more very, fresh. That's a namazake. So namazake, a lot of people say namazake has to be drunk, meant to be drunk as quick as, you can. That's, that's a way that you can, yeah. But sake doesn't really go bad, wine, a lot of times if you wait after, especially after opening, and the wine's shelf life is much shorter than sake. Even like after opening, sake shelf life is really long. Of course, they lose some aromatic character and the freshness, but it doesn't really go bad. You can drink it, after opening, like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months in the fridge, still drinkable.
All right. So besides the Umami Mart bar exclusive force carbonated Den Blanc, what is next for you guys?
What's your next project? Your next baby?
Well, I'm still like thinking a lot of different things, but definitely I want to experiment something new, and something to go well with food here. That's, my kind of key kind of like point, food here and the sake go well together. So probably there are still some ways to add some new thing, new flavor or new something onto the traditional sake making to kind of fit, describe it. So I don't know what, and I cannot really tell what exactly I want to do, but definitely something is, there's still some,
he has a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Great. Does any more questions for?
I think this like crazy sky and weather is making everybody quiet, including me. I feel like I'm not as
question.
You
mentioned that you use the same water for both sakes. How do you source the water? Do you need to treat it, or what's the water component as an ingredient?
Great question. So I use the water, it's a tap water, straight from tap. It's Auckland water, very soft. I don't use any filtration, nothing. It's just a pure Auckland tap water.
But you analyzed it and you did a study on all the minerals and the hardness and the softness. And it turned out it was very soft and it was very suitable for sake making. The softness gives it kind of that round mouth feel, and it's actually softer than the water in Hiroshima, Japan, which is famous.
Some part of Hiroshima, it's is probably softer than this, but probably this water from Auckland is definitely it's a softer water, even in Japan. It was a surprise for me. It's a big surprise for me, but
and it didn't have a lot of the elements that can give sake undesirable flavors.
Right.
Like magnesium is one of them?
Yeah, manganese or iron considered create kind of like a bad kind of like flavor and the color to the sake. So those are not really good. But those are, the Auckland water is a very good water actually. And the interesting thing, it's just water comes from the what's the name of the Native Americans' name? Mokelumne River.
Yosemite, right?
High Sierra, yeah. So that's different from Hatch Hatchy for San Francisco, but those water, come from the reservoir, and it's depend on the season, depend on the weather. If the rains a lot, then the reservoir, they release water quickly. So the contact with the wall of the reservoir, which is a stone, concrete, it's much less time, and it's released. So it's less mineral content. But if it's like super dry weather, what's the
Sitting in the reservoir for a long
yeah,
time.
if there, if it doesn't rain much, then water sits in the reservoir for a long time. So that's, all the mineral content comes from the, wall of the reservoir, and that creates a little bit more mineral rich water, which is, hot water. So it's depend on the weather, water quality changes. So that's also, made me think, okay, we use kind of batch system for the, then each batch is different because we cannot really control completely. So, each time different, that's fine, because different weather we have, each year. So that's also, those batch concept came, out of it too.
So then would that be like the terroir of Oakland then?
Kind of, yeah. Definitely.
And then for the rice, are you sourcing for Blanc the same? I mean, I know it's different koji, but where's the rice coming in from?
Sorry. Can you ask me again?
Oh, the sourcing rice for your different sakes.
Yes. So right now I use exactly the same rice for both Blanc and Den Original. And that's rice come from a Sacramento Valley. The farm is called the Rue and the Forceman Ranch. That name is on our Den Original label, the front label. So that's a single farmer instead of using a co-mingled rice. Of course, co-mingled rice means, all the rice come from different farmer and it's mixed together. And that way it's a little bit cheaper, but I just wanted to reflect the farmers or land's characteristics. So I decided to use rice from the single farmer and put the farmer's name on the label. It's more transparent. People know how the rice is grown. Yeah, that's kind of one of our philosophy too. Any other question? Any other question?
Okay, I think
It's a wrap.
maybe that's a wrap. Thanks everybody for joining us, and I'm glad that some of you made the trout salad. It was a really fun pairing, and if you have time or you didn't have time today, you can make it this weekend. Yeah, this is so much fun. Thank you so much. Let us know if you have any questions, follow up, and hopefully we'll see you again curbside soon.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody without masks.
Yeah.
See their actual face.
And thank you, Yoshi and Lani, for
doing
this. It was so informative.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for everybody for purchasing the Den, and
thanks everyone.
Next time.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.
Konkai, your outfit was really awesome today.
Hello?
You're still in it. Awesome.
I I was on my way back from San Mateo because I went to sushi Yoshifume to get their takeouts.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to leave early and come back right on time, but when I arrived there, it's already 5:30. So I just turned on the voice.
Oh, well, I'm glad you got to join in.
I think we lost you.
Yeah, we did. Bye.
Have a good night. Enjoy the sushi. All right, I'm going to stop.